The studio lights of the morning show gleamed off the polished surfaces, casting a golden glow that made everything look inviting and professional. The audience, seated in rows of tiered chairs, murmured with excitement, their chatter a low hum that filled the room as cameras rolled and technicians made last-minute adjustments. Elizabeth Hurley, poised and elegant as ever, sat upright in the guest chair, her sapphire dress catching the studio lights and glinting with every movement. She had appeared on countless talk shows before, but something about this morning felt different, charged, tense, like the calm before a storm. The host, Dana Rivers, a rising star in morning television known for her provocative interview style, smiled at Elizabeth with a combination of charm and calculated curiosity. "We're back, everyone, and joining us is the stunning Elizabeth Hurley, actress, model, philanthropist, and now founder of her new wellness brand. Elizabeth, welcome!" "Thank you," Elizabeth replied, her voice calm, polished, and unmistakably confident. Her eyes, though composed, held a flicker of wariness, as if she could already sense the trajectory the interview might take. "It's a pleasure to be here." Dana leaned forward slightly, her hands clasped, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're thrilled to have you. Now, before we dive into your new wellness line and your upcoming charity gala, can we talk about your incredible career? You've been in the spotlight for decades, and yet you look amazing. Everyone's calling you ageless. What's the secret?" Elizabeth laughed lightly, a musical, understated laugh that filled the space without sounding forced. "I think the secret is, there's no secret. I stay active, eat well, and try to keep a level head. And I'm lucky, of course." The audience clapped, a polite ripple of approval, though there was a subtle undercurrent of expectation, as if they were waiting for the moment the conversation would shift from pleasantries to something more sensational. Dana tilted her head, the smile never fading. "Well, yes, but everyone knows that life in Hollywood isn't exactly kind to women as they age. You've been very open about the pressures you've faced in your career, whether it's the scrutiny over your roles, the media attention on your personal life, or just the general obsession with looks. Do you ever feel like some of the attention you've received has been cultivated?" Elizabeth's composed expression didn't falter, though her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "Cultivated?" she echoed softly, curious, measured. Dana gestured vaguely, leaning a bit closer, lowering her voice just enough to make the statement sting. "Well, people notice the posts you make online, the appearances you choose. Some might say it's part of maintaining your public image. Do you think that adds pressure on women your age?" The audience shifted uncomfortably. There was a sudden quiet, a subtle tension that hadn't been there before. Elizabeth tilted her head slightly, her hands resting elegantly in her lap. "I don't think it adds pressure," she said evenly, her voice smooth but firm. "I post what I want. I don't post for anyone else. And anyone who interprets it as pressure on others is projecting their own insecurities." Dana raised her eyebrows, undeterred. "But surely, don't you think it can send mixed messages to younger women? On one hand, there's the message to embrace yourself, love who you are. On the other hand, here's Elizabeth Hurley, showing off her body, maintaining an image that seems almost unattainable. Could that be confusing?" Elizabeth's smile tightened ever so slightly, the first crack in her usual poise. She leaned back in her chair gracefully, her eyes still locked on Dana, and replied, "I think it sends exactly the message it should. That women, of any age, have the right to feel proud of themselves. That they can celebrate their bodies, their accomplishments, and their choices without needing anyone's approval. If that's confusing to some people, then perhaps they need to reevaluate their assumptions about women and aging." The audience reacted immediately, a mixture of applause and murmurs of agreement. Dana's smile faltered for a brief second, though her professional demeanor remained intact. She tilted her head and continued, trying to regain control of the narrative. "I'm just asking a question that people are curious about. It's a valid point of discussion." Elizabeth's voice sharpened, though her tone remained polished and composed. "Curiosity is one thing. Judgment disguised as curiosity is another. And I don't appreciate being judged on the choices I make for myself, especially not on live television." A ripple of applause spread through the audience. Even the camera operators paused, catching the tension in their lenses. The host adjusted, trying to smooth the situation. Okay, fair. Let's pivot a little. You've also been in the public eye for your personal life, relationships, and high-profile connections. That's a part of your history, isn't it? Elizabeth's posture straightened, her gaze sharpening. It's my history, she said, the words deliberate, resonant. I'm proud of the work I've done, the causes I support, and the projects I've undertaken. But my private life is exactly that, private. My professional accomplishments should speak louder than anyone's opinion about who I've dated. Dana attempted to push further, leaning slightly closer, a subtle edge creeping into her voice. But don't you think some of that attention, the fascination with your relationships, has helped maintain your celebrity status? Elizabeth exhaled softly, a measured, almost imperceptible pause that seemed to stretch longer under the studio lights. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her jaw tightening just enough to signal that she was no longer playing along. My career has maintained my status, she said firmly. My work, my choices, and my dedication, not the gossip, not the speculation, not the scrutiny. The audience murmured in appreciation, a soft ripple of applause rising. Dana's smile remained, but it was a little forced now, brittle at the edges. Well, I suppose some might say it's part of being in the public eye, she countered, her tone carefully neutral. Elizabeth leaned forward slightly, hands resting on her knees now, her voice clear, precise, and cutting through the studio air like a blade. Being in the public eye doesn't give anyone the right to trivialize a woman's accomplishments. And framing my confidence, my choices, and my achievements as something negative, desperate even, is not only offensive, it's condescending. There was a collective intake of breath from the audience. Even the camera operators froze for a fraction of a second, capturing every second of the tension. Dana tilted her head, clearly attempting to recover. Elizabeth, I don't mean to be offensive. Elizabeth interrupted, her voice sharp now, resonant with authority. Then perhaps you should reconsider your questions. Because when you suggest that a woman's confidence and pride in herself is somehow a problem, you are being offensive. The applause in the studio grew louder, rising in waves. Some audience members were on their feet. The energy in the room was palpable, a mixture of admiration and awe. Dana's lips pressed into a thin line, realizing that the interview had slipped from her control. She attempted to redirect, but Elizabeth's gaze never wavered. I didn't come here for this, she continued, her tone even but unmistakably firm. I came to discuss my work, my charity, the things I'm building. I am not here to be subjected to commentary on my personal life or my appearance. The studio felt strangely quiet in the aftermath of Elizabeth Hurley's departure. The usual hum of activity had been replaced with a charged tension that lingered in every corner. Crew members whispered frantically into headsets, trying to coordinate the transition to the next segment, while producers shuffled papers and gestured animatedly at monitors. Cameras remained rolling, though the lens was now fixed on the empty guest chair, as though the very absence of Elizabeth radiated power through the room. Dana Rivers sat frozen at the host's desk, her usual practiced smile faltering as she stared at the monitor, replaying the moments that had just unfolded. She had been confident, poised even at the beginning of the interview. Her questions were calculated, designed to tease and provoke. But Elizabeth had dismantled the narrative in real time, responding with grace, authority, and an unmistakable fire that Dana hadn't anticipated. The host leaned back, running a hand through her hair, a subtle tremor betraying the anxiety she tried to mask. This wasn't the controlled viral clip moment she had hoped for. It was a lesson in poise, power, and unassailable self-respect. Backstage, Elizabeth had already removed her microphone pack and taken a few measured breaths. Her assistant hovered nearby, clearly concerned. "Are you okay?" she asked gently, handing Elizabeth a bottle of water. Elizabeth took a slow sip of water and let her gaze drift toward the studio exit. "I hope so," she murmured. "It's not about making headlines, it's about making a point. Confidence, dignity, and respect are not negotiable." Meanwhile, in the control room, The executive producer was pacing back and forth, eyes glued to the multiple monitors displaying the live feed and social media reactions. "We're already trending," he muttered under his breath. Clips of the interview are everywhere. People are talking. Fans are praising her. She didn't just, though the edge in her voice betrayed the anxiety creeping in. "No,"